Hey, and welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This is the show all about farmers markets. Whether you're a farmers market manager, a farmer, or a food producer selling at farmers markets, or just a curious farmers market shopper, this is the podcast for you.
On today's episode of Tent Talk, we're talking with Charlotte Smith of Shampooig Creamery and 3 Cow Marketing. We chat about growing successful businesses, reaching your ideal customer, and building a group of loyal shoppers. Hi, I'm Justine Marzoni-Mead. I'm hot sauce maker and event facilitator for the Intense Conference.
Hey, I'm Bridget Myers. I've spent years as a behind-the-scenes and on-site farmers market manager for San Diego markets. I've done it all from pulling permits to social media marketing.
And I'm Kat Fields-White. I'm a hands-on market manager. I still haul my share of barricades, but I'm also the director of San Diego Markets and the founder of Intense Business.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So we are about to talk to Charlotte Smith, and if you weren't at Intense Conference 2017 or 18, you may not know Charlotte yet, but you are about to love her because she is awesome. So Charlotte owns a raw milk micro dairy, Shampooig Creamery, out of Oregon. And in addition to being a successful farmer, Charlotte is a small business marketing guru. She's a professional speaker and author of Farm Marketing from the Heart. She's also president of the Northwest Farmers Union, covering Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. And in 2016, Charlotte was named one of the top 25 most influential women in the world of food and agriculture by the nonprofit Food Tank.
And Food Tank's a big deal.
Yeah.
Huge.
Charlotte's a big deal. So, all right.
One of these days we're going to ask her to come to Intense, and she's just going to be, she's going to be off talking to presidents or,
Yeah.
Don't forget the small people.
Don't forget us, Charlotte.
One day, but not today.
But not today.
Here with us.
She's with us today.
Welcome, Charlotte. Thanks for joining us today. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. You are our Intense Conference little darling. Everyone was like, we want more Charlotte.
More Charlotte.
Oh, well, I'd be happy to move to San Diego anytime.
Okay.
If I can afford land. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We could kick
Yeah.
Jerome out of his little
She has
trailer.
cows.
Oh, man.
That's a
Give me a
problem.
little more space.
Okay, a little more space than we have here.
Okay, well, so we're already talking about your cows and your farm. So just for our audience who may not know you yet, they don't love you yet, but they will any minute.
Yeah.
Can you just start off by telling us a little bit about your farm and maybe how you got started with that?
Yes, absolutely. Well, my farm is called Shampooig Creamery, and I'm about 30 minutes south of Portland, Oregon. And I started my farm 10 years ago. And it was because we started eating from farms and farm-raised food, farm-fresh food about 15 years ago. And the farmers kept going out of business, and we'd have to find a new farm. So I thought, well, I'll just produce my own food. So that's why we started, and we have a little farm store on our property that we sell. We're open 4 days a week. And it's been great. I love every bit of it. So we have a raw milk dairy, and then we do pastured poultry, including meat, chickens, and eggs, turkeys at Thanksgiving. And we do some farm camps in the summer for kids. And we just really we have about 100 customers that come every single week. And we really just raise food for those families.
That's awesome. So when you first started, was it immediately kind of, rolling from the get-go? Or was there a kind of a learning curve in terms of the profits coming in? How was that for you?
Well, starting a farm, there is a learning curve because you have to learn how to farm. And I was raised on a farm, but it was a commodity crop farm. So it's very different than what I do. And you have to learn how to market. So you got to wear a whole bunch of different hats. And so it was successful from the start, but I made a lot of mistakes. You learn by doing, I bought 2-ton hay bales because I thought they were cheap, which they were, but then I realized you can't move 2-ton hay bales. And so that took about 6 months of hard work learning that lesson. So I learned a lot of lessons the hard way. And then the marketing part of it was really fun. It was just building it's really down to my belief in marketing. If you're here to serve and connect with others, you'll have customers. So that part of it was successful. But I had to learn early on that, wow, the price I was charging was not going to pay the bills very long. So I learned a lot.
I feel like so many farmers don't realize that. Watching some of the people in your classes and the people that we talk to at our farmers markets, they'll say, oh, well, I'm going to charge this price because so-and-so next to me is charging that price. It's like, it's not about that. What did it cost you to produce this? How can you make clear to your customers that you need to make a living?
Yes, and handcrafted, hand-raised food products like we do will never be able to be sold at the price you see at Costco or Walmart or your local grocery store. So just start out, and most people are undercharging by maybe even 50%. So looking around at your neighbors is not the way to price your products.
I absolutely agree. And we tell our farmers and vendors all the time that people who are coming to farmers markets aren't coming for the price. I mean, if they want cheap prices, there's that and a lot easier parking by going to Costco or Walmart or what have you. They're coming to the farmers market for quality.
Yeah, and that connection. And our customers, they walk through the door and they connect with us, they chat with us. They pull package after package out of the store without looking at the price. So they're there to visit with you and the experience.
Yeah, same things. And it's funny how what you teach, Charlotte, because you've got a really big following of people, other farmers that you're teaching to make a living at this, right?
Yes. My Facebook group is about 5,000 and my email list is close to the same size. And it's growing every day.
What gave you the idea to do that? I mean, that's kind of different. You've got the 2-ton hay bales figured out. You've broken them into little pieces and moved them around. How do you decide to go from there to, okay, now I'm going to learn how to get really intense into marketing, and now I'm going to spread it out to other people? Is that something, I mean, did you take a class about teaching marketing?
Well, I brought, so I'm 50 now, so I had 2 separate careers.
You're a baby.
I know, it's amazing. But I had, for 10 years, I ran an event planning business in the city of Portland till I sold it. And then for 10 years, I sold real estate. And so both those businesses, I had to learn how to connect with people because everybody knows lots of realtors. And the reason you're going to choose a realtor is usually the ones you're closer friends with. Sure. And so I learned that I gotta love my customers. I have to go out of my way to connect with them regularly, or when they go to buy a house, they're gonna call any one of their other friends because I haven't talked to them in a year or whatever. So I learned to do that, and I brought those skills to my farm. And then because I started farming because all my farmers I bought from were going out of business. And then my farm neighbor friends were saying, why are you able to charge twice as much as we can charge for our milk? And we aren't even selling half as much as you sell. What is it you're doing? So I started bringing people into my home and trying to teach them how to, it's all about relationship building. And then that was more of a hassle because it would take half a day on a Saturday or something. So then I took all sorts of online courses learning how to create my own online course. And I spent a year writing down what I do to build relationships and putting and recording videos, which you've seen, and writing my book and writing all the materials. And that way I'm able to reach so many more farmers. And the neat thing is it's farm specific because selling food is very different than if you take an online marketing course to sell something else. So, there's so many details that a farmer can pull from, or somebody making food can use that you won't find in other places. So I've been able to really niche down and find my niche and customize it to farmers and help other people be successful. They'll go from selling $200 a day at the market booth to selling $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 a day at their booth. So this is life-changing for people. It's not just nice to have. It's like changes your life when you could finally start paying some of the bills, or maybe have one of you quit their second job, Yeah.
Well, it keeps you in business. We don't want farmers to go out of business. All of us want to eat.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so nice that you have such a big group too that you speak to, and that they can speak to each other. Like answer a question, or they ask a question, and so many people chime in with what works for them at their farm, and there might be something just a little bit different at one person's farm than another, or who they're working with farmers market wise. You seem to have kind of the rising tide lifts all boats kind of philosophy. Like if we all do well, like this food system is going to get better, and there's enough business for all of us out there.
Yes. because I teach people that if you learn to market the way I teach, there is no competition. We can all be selling the same product in our community, and we will each have our own loyal base of customers that my customers wouldn't dream of buying from anybody else, just like yours wouldn't dream of leaving you either. And that's the spirit I have in that group.
Yeah.
And someone asked me today, actually, on an earlier call, they're about to take my course and join the private group. And they said, well, you mean people actually share their information of what they're doing? I said, yeah. I said, the more you give, the money comes in. The less you focus on money and the more you focus on sharing what you have to give, whether that's knowledge or advice, the more money you make. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, there is this karmic aspect of farmers market and small businesses, and when you're kind of open to share ideas with other people, then they share their ideas with you, and then you're like, oh wow, that's a way better way to do it. And it kind of boomerangs that way. I've definitely had that experience.
It is. It's like exponential growth. If we sit and chat ideas and brainstorm ideas, we're going to come out with 100 times more ideas than we would if we'd have just sat alone and done it. So that's what I've tried to create in this group, is a mastermind, really. All these minds coming together create something really big that we can all pull from.
Yeah, it really is. You can almost see the light bulbs going off over people's heads in your group. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
So you have you ever participated in farmers markets? You just did your own
the
farm.
reason is I was forced to. So I would have loved to have been able to go to the farmers market, but because of Oregon law, we cannot
because
sell
of milk.
We can't deliver or sell milk at a farmer's market. So I was forced to have people come to the farm, on-farm sales. And that's great. But what I like to tell farmers is you can build your business, whether it's the same skills,
Sure.
whether you're selling at a farmer's market or you're on-farm store or you're delivering to houses or you're delivering to a drop site. People will say, well, I can't start a farm because the closest farmer's market is 3 hours away. Well, you don't have to let that stop you. You just, when you build this loyal following, they will go out of their way to shop from you, whether it's the market or like me, an hour's drive from the city, or, meeting you at a drop site on a Sunday afternoon at some church parking lot. So you can.
Do you use churches in particular so that people don't get suspicious when they see you trading money in little packages? Like if you're at a gas station, it can attract the wrong kind of attention.
Right. Yeah. No, people do drop. They'll have drop sites for their meat and stuff at all different kinds of places. Lots of times they'll do churches, say on a Saturday, because the parking lot's empty. It's not being used.
Right. So what do you think are maybe the couple of best ways to reach potential customers today? There's so many different ways to hit people with social media and email and podcasts, I guess, and different things to do.
Or texting.
There's text programs where you send it out to everybody. I mean, and when you're a small business, you've got so many other things to do just in terms of running your business. How do you suggest people choose what their outlets are going to be to develop those relationships?
Mm-hmm. Well, you've got to choose one. A big problem people make is they try to choose several, and you can't do several right, so you've got to choose one. As far as, do you mean where to sell or where to market?
To use your techniques for developing relationships with people. I know you're all about the relationship you have with your customers is what makes your business grow. How do you choose how to reach those customers? There's so many different outlets now. Do you do Instagram? Do you do Facebook? Do you do email?
Well, the very first thing, I have a blog post, the 12 things I did my first 2 years of business, and it all involves getting out in your community. People forget that they think, well, I'm starting a business, therefore I'm going to blast my information out on the internet from the comfort of my own home. Well, that is the long, slow game. The very first thing you do is you get out. The first people, my first customers were moms from my daughter's play group. We sat around chatting, and then and that was 6 months before I ever opened my doors. And then when I opened my doors, they were my first customers, and they brought 5 people. And pretty soon I had 20 people on my email list. So your email list is the foundation of everything you do. Everything else funnels into your email list. But some people will say, well, how do I even get that first subscriber? It's your mom, it's your kids, it's your sister, it's your friends at playgroup. And then some of those people are still my customers 10 years later. But that's how you build. And I set one, but so many people think because we have the internet, you don't need to do that anymore. But that's where you have to start. And this could be, I set aside a half a day every week to get out in my community. And it might be that I take a dozen eggs to the chiropractic office in town, 15 minutes away. And I just I'm not there to sell him anything. I'm just there to have a conversation and just chat with him. I'm not there to ask him to hand out my information. I'm just having a talk with him. And then I have a list of people that I revisit and keep in touch with them in person. A great thing to do is there are Rotary clubs and Kiwanis clubs full of businessmen and women who have the money and time to volunteer. Some of my biggest, richest customers have come from going and speaking about what I do at their luncheons, because these guys, these women and men have these boring lunch meetings, and they'll call me out and they'll say, our meeting is so boring, we want to hear about your farm. And I thought, well, who would want to hear about my farm? But they're just enthralled if you go in, and they would love to hear. So that's kind of a one-to-many. When you can get in front of 20 people and talk about what you do, they're fascinated. And that personal touch, they'll be at your farm the next week or your farmer's market booth the next week buying from you because you came and talked to them at lunch or you stopped by. And I will, so anyway, I just make it a point to meet in person with somebody once a week. And that might be a customer. Maybe I call up a customer and we meet for coffee. And I'm just engaging and I'm serving and giving and listening to their stories and we're building a relationship. And this is, people forget this. They forget this step. They want to just put a post on Facebook or Instagram. So those channels are all great, but those are channels that need to come after you've done some in-person relating. And that in-person work can never stop. Yeah. You need to, like here I am 10 years later, and I still get out in my community as often as possible to connect in person, or people forget about you. There's going to be 5 other people they're going to run into in the next month selling the same thing I do. And if they have a great connection with that person, they're going to buy from them and I'm going to lose them. But if they remember that they ran into me and then they got a recipe from me last week through email marketing, and then they saw my picture on Instagram, I'm always at top of mind. But as farmers, we've got such a valuable marketing tool with ourselves and our story. And we don't want to forget that. We want to utilize that.
Yeah, I think it's easy for people to forget that they're farming or they're food makers. They forget how really interesting they are. I'm not a farmer or a food maker, and I'm always interested in hearing like farmer stories or people talking about making their food. It's really fascinating to me. So I think when you're in that business, maybe you think, oh, no one wants to hear my story or what I did on my farm this week, but people really do. And when you talk about it, those stories really stick with you, and then it really does make those shoppers want to come and buy your product from you. And you just have to keep those stories coming because there's always something interesting happening at the farm.
We take it for granted. You look at those animals as the source of your chores for that day.
Exactly.
But we look upon them as romantic, adorable little creatures.
Yes.
Yeah.
When your goats do something funny, it's like, oh, maybe it's not funny to you, but like people who don't have goats or rabbits, we think it's hilarious. Like think of all the videos on the internet that are just of like animals doing regular things, but people who don't have those animals think it's so funny. So, just keeping those stories coming, and I think that helps make those personal connections, like you were saying. As a farmer's market shopper, I find that very helpful when people come and they want to just listen to me or ask me about my kids and like what their favorite fruit is, or do they like bacon? Those kind of questions. And then they take it back to, oh, well, I have that stuff in season, or here, try it. That really keeps my attention as a customer and keeps my loyalty to that farmer that has explained and taken the time to get to know me and my family. So I think that's an important point to make.
Yeah, and I want to share a little bit more about that because when I hire someone in my farm store, and this would be the same thing for if you're at your farmer's market booth or you're hiring someone, I tell them, you're not here to sell. You are here to make every person you come in contact with feel great about themselves. And I said, the money will flow, if you do that. And I want to expand on that because we go to our local farmers market. I won't say which one. Once every quarter, I always have a big order that I pick up from a vendor for my farm store. And then while we're there, since it's a big city outing for us, we go, we buy mushrooms that we don't raise at home. We buy salsa. We go to about 10 or 12 different booths. And when I went there this last time, it really stood out to me that not one of them tried to relate to me. They just said,
no.
What flavor do you want?
Know who you are?
Yeah.
No,
They know who you are, Charlotte.
I'm Charlotte
Well,
Smith.
she's a shopper.
Yes.
First and foremost, right?
that shouldn't matter at all. And so not one of them asked. So then when I go back to the farmer's market, it will only be happen chance if I land in their booth again, because they did nothing to be memorable to me. They didn't even ask me to be on their email list, so they have no way of building a relationship with me. So when we went away, I told my husband, I was like, do you realize not one of those people tried to engage with us about anything? They didn't say like, oh, what a cute shirt or cute bag or nothing. They just said, how much, how many do you want? That was it.
That's
and
awful.
so, it was, but it's not uncommon. And so, I'm gonna contact the director and say, hey, maybe we should do a little course for your vendors. Yeah. So people forget that you're not there to sell. You are there to, if you go into it with that mindset of I'm there to make everyone who walks by feel great about themselves, you're going to make a ton of money. And then the second step, of course, is get them on your email list right then and there, because then you can serve them. It's not salesy. You're there to serve them, and you can't serve them if they're not on your email list.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We tell people that if you're underpricing your products and you can't bring yourself to price them logically, raise the price to benefit you, think about it this way, do it to benefit your customers, because if you go out of business because you're not pricing things right, you're not serving them anymore. They're going to miss that product that they count on every week.
Yes.
They're left. They leave a community of people behind that can no longer find what they were doing. So it's really important. And that's a mindset thing. It's not a calculation, or it's a thinking. It's a way of thinking.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to put it on your 10-year business plan, your 20-year business plan, just to keep those connections up. I think we see people come in the farmers market. It's the owner of the business. They make really great connections with their customers, and then they say, "Oh, I'm doing great. I'm going to have an employee in here," and it's some 20-year-old kid, and the owner doesn't come back to the booth, for weeks and weeks, and it's just somebody selling their product. And they're not making connection. They're just trying to get their sales and sell X number of jars of whatever that day. And so that connection is lost, and they see their sales take a big dip. And the product is the same, but it's the connection is different. And that's where the sales kind of differ. So we see that a lot that happens.
Yeah, and that if they could raise their prices higher and pay more money to a higher quality person, so they don't just have to pay that high school kid or
Exactly. Yeah.
And invest in training. Take the people that work for you, invest in some training for them so they really understand the concept.
Yeah.
Yep. And your prices of your products need to be able to pay for that training and all that. So
exactly. Yeah, it's an integrated thing.
So farmers are kind of matter of fact, real life, on the ground kind of people. Do they find you a little cosmic with all this farming marketing from the heart thing?
Oh, that is a really interesting question, because that was what I thought. That was my fear, because the older I get in life, the more I realize it is a holistic cosmic universe. Right. And if that whole idea that if you think something, then it will happen. Well, I've seen that happen too many in my times in my life to doubt that. So at first I did think that. And then I started teaching my course and talking about it. And you know what? It just kind of gives other people permission to say, well, yeah, I've realized that same thing on my farm. Or, and so then I thought, well, maybe it's only women who are going to understand it, because we tend to be more that way anyway. And then guess what? The men farmers that are taking my course are having great success too. And they're saying, well, I never thought about serving my dream customer, but now I'm thinking about it and we're making more money.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So it's one of those things where take it or leave it, but it works. And if you get desperate enough, you'll try anything and it'll turn what you. So yeah, I don't have a problem with people. I'm not too woo woo, I'm just kind of, it's like, you got to admit it. There's some things happening out there that we can't explain. So let's just embrace it in our business and make more money.
Exactly. Everyone wants their business to work, bottom line.
Right.
You're running
Right.
a business.
You don't have to understand it, just do it. It
Yeah.
works.
Exactly. And sometimes that's what I say, don't overthink this. Just do this. Just write the email. Don't talk about anything you have for sale. Just give them this wonderful story. And guess what? The sales will happen. And then they experience and they're like, oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you said something at the conference this year that you can go broke laying on the beach in Hawaii. You're not going to work this hard and go broke. So if you're going to work
You're
this
right.
hard, let's put the work in and let's make it profitable and do what makes sense for the business. That's really going to turn that profit and make your customers feel good. And I think that's just an important thing for everybody to remember. If you're selling in farmers markets or you're having your customers come to your farm, like do what's going to work. Don't waste
Exactly.
your own time. Yeah.
Yes. And find, don't take advice from 25 different people. Find one person you know and trust and use their advice, whether it's farming or the marketing or this or that.
Yeah.
And work really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have all this email marketing that you do and your courses and everything. But if you could just kind of tell us a little bit about social media, because it's such a hard thing, I think someone said it recently, but like no one thought MySpace was going anywhere. Or no one thought that MySpace was going to end, right? When it was happening, we're like, this is it. Like we're going to do this for the rest of our lives, and then it just all left our lives. Gratefully,
Sure.
maybe, yeah. But Facebook is going really strong. I feel like it's a good investment of our time to use Facebook. But I always kind of keep in the back of my mind, this could change at any minute. Same with Instagram. Instagram was always kind of in the back of my mind, and then it's turned around, and we kind of utilize that a lot and try to make connections with Instagram as well. And so, how do you kind of view that? I know you take those emails as like that's where you can always
Sure.
reach your customers, but what about the social media stuff?
Aren't you doing a new thing too on Instagram, Charlotte?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So social media is great, both Facebook and Instagram. And we're creating an Instagram training. But the very foundation of your marketing strategy is your email list. And that there is nothing on the horizon that says that is going to go anywhere. That's the only thing that works as a foundation. And then Facebook and Instagram are funnels into that, because Facebook and Instagram own the emails of the people who signed up. You can't put a post on Instagram and have all 1,000 or 5 or 10,000 or 100 of your followers see it. You will have a small percentage of them see it because of the algorithms on both Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
So those have to be you look at them as channels, as tools you use to get people on your email list through relating. Now, what I see a lot of farmers do is two things on social media. They're putting pictures of their product up there and saying, oh, we have eggs, and there'll be a picture of an egg in a carton. Well, if I'm scrolling through social media, that doesn't catch my interest. What might catch, there's so many more beautiful ways to display eggs than that. But I want to hear a story of their personal life. I want to hear what happened when they went out to pick up eggs today and they found a dead chicken and they said a little prayer over it and threw it over the back fence. That's going to stop me. Yeah. Or like we went out to collect eggs the other day and there's a skunk in the live trap.
Oh, no.
And then, so there's a live skunk and we're tiptoeing around him and then we shoot him and the whole property smells like skunk. So I know.
Real life.
Those are engaging stories that are going they're going to get someone who's scrolling through Instagram to stop it and read it. And they're going to be like, wow, this person is cool. And then they'll comment and then I comment back. And so the important thing to remember that with Instagram's algorithm, the thing that gets you shown to your customers is engagement. It's not hashtags like people have worried about in the past. That has subsided. It's commenting back and forth.
Yeah.
And so in my new Instagram training, I tell them, set a goal of making 5 comments a day on your ideal customer's posts. Go out and make, because when you comment on their posts, they're going to comment back on yours. And that's the only way you're going to move up in that algorithm. But ultimately, your goal is to get them on your email list, because eventually they're not going to be shown your posts. The algorithm constantly changes who sees your posts. So the only way you can build a consistent relationship with them where you can connect with them twice a month year round is on email. So yes, Instagram, Facebook are great places to find customers, but you don't want to advertise your products there. They aren't there to be sold to. People are on those things to, have fun, look for fun, inspiring photos and things like that. So have the inspiring photo, have an inspiring story, build a conversation with them, and go for as much engagement as you can get and get them on your email list.
Yeah, so think of those social media kind of connections as serving a purpose of making a face-to-face interaction and for getting that email address so that you can have a long-term relationship with them. I think that's really good to remember.
Yeah, I've been doing lots of Instagram account reviews lately in the Profitable Farm. And so lots of their photos are just advertisements.
Oh, yeah.
And I tell them, you don't want, they'll have a photo of their market booth and say, we're at the market here from 10 till 3. Well, that doesn't engage me. A funny story and something will. And that's the way you're going to get them to your market booth, not a picture of your market booth. So it's kind of like that give and serve, and then they will come shop with you because they like you, not because you have the biggest, loudest ad and the biggest discount for the day or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any parting tips, any super simple tips that farmers market vendors can use to keep in mind as the main things they should be concentrating on?
Yeah, your goal at the farmers market is not necessarily to sell things, but get everyone on your email list. And you do that by being free and giving and kind and giving compliments and engaging in conversations. And then it leads to, hey, if you get on our email list, I send you all sorts of great recipes and this. Here it is right here on. I will have when we're not at a farmer's market, but sometimes I'll have a booth where I'm doing something for someone, and we'll have 2 or 3 iPhones and our iPads so that if we get 5 people at once, we've got enough people to get everyone on our email list. So if you go home from the farmer's market.
Do you sign them up on your email? So do you not use a paper sign up? Do you sign them right on an iPad or an iPhone?
Right on my phone. Yeah.
That's a really good tip. We have so many pages of people signing up and then you can't read their handwriting and you don't have their email right, and then you've kind of wasted that opportunity. So that's smart.
Yeah, and the best way to do that is to have on your website your free, what I call the lead magnet, what I teach you to create.
Yeah.
And so then you can, if you're selling your salsa, then you can say, oh yeah, I've got 10 of my favorite recipes here. If you put your name and email in here, you'll get my recipe book with 10 of my favorite recipes, and I'll be able to connect with you every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And if you say it in that wonderful, enthusiastic voice, they're not going to turn you down.
No way.
For sure.
And you already
Charlotte,
complimented them on their shirt.
What would you say as a busy business owner myself, who and sometimes it's like pulling teeth to get myself to write the newsletter and sit down and I keep putting it on my calendar and then pushing it back. What would you say is the bare minimum of sending an email newsletter? Is it once a month? Is it once a quarter?
Question.
What can I get away with?
Well, I think studies show, and my own experience, and then now all the hundreds of farmers' experience shows that you've got to keep in touch with people at a minimum once a month year round. Mm-hmm. And if you go longer than once a month, they forget why they were on your list in the first place. So that 1 month of not talking to someone is about the limit. And then there's reasons that say you have you're selling vegetables just during 6 months of the year. Well, during vegetable season, you might be emailing them once a week for various reasons, or every 2 weeks. But then in the off season, this is where most farmers fall off the bandwagon, is they think, well, now I don't have to send a newsletter till next March because I don't have product to sell till next March. Well, you're going to lose your customers don't feel like they matter to you anymore because you haven't been communicating to them and they aren't going to come back to you. So minimum once a month year round, work your way up to twice a month year round. And then if you have seasonal fluctuations, that's fine. But psychologically, that's the best schedule.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, it looks like we're wrapping up right here. So I want to ask our little roundtable question real quick before we let you go. So this week's question, we want to know, what is the wackiest question that you've had recently, whether it's in your Facebook group or at the farmer's market, or somebody calls you or emails you asking for advice or help. So what's your wackiest question you've had recently?
I have one.
Oh.
I've got one. I had somebody ask this week, because we're really stringent with our folks when they bring us samples of their products so that they can get into the farmer's market. We tell them they've got to meet all the legal labeling requirements. They have to have all their ingredients on. We go through a long spiel on what has to be on those labels. And after doing that with this woman, she said, so I have to put labels on my cookies, so would those need to be edible labels?
Taking it very literally.
The answer would be no. But if you find those could be cool.
That could be funny.
Yeah, that could be funny. How about you, Charlotte?
That's funny. Well, I was going to share that a vendor in our Profitable Farm Facebook group yesterday, someone shared it was her first time going to the farmer's market as a farmer selling beef. And after she got home, another vendor also selling meat wrote her and said, since we're both selling at the same market and we shouldn't compete, so why don't you bring the processed meat, sausages, and I'll bring the steaks? And this woman came to the Profitable Farm Facebook group to ask, is this normal? And luckily, we have such a great group in there, including Kat, who said, and then if you market the way I teach, there is no competition. So for so many reasons, that was just a crazy question of, why don't you leave your stuff home so that I don't have to compete with you? We're getting her all set up.
That's a good question, but no, you don't have to listen to the other. The vendors aren't going to be in charge of what you're bringing to the market.
That's crazy.
Exactly.
You for
Yeah, what do you think, Justine?
So at our farm, at the farmers markets, we have 3 products that are processed packaged products that are shelf stable. But we have one. It's a spicy vegan pesto that we make fresh each day before the market. And so my husband often will say, "I just made this morning," because he woke up really early to make it before the market. And oftentimes people say, "You just came up with this morning? This is amazing." And he's like, "What?" And like, "You just came up with this idea this morning?" He's like, "No, I made it this morning."
And you made these labels this morning before the market? Wow.
We woke up really early.
Really quick.
That is crazy.
Okay, Bridget, you already told me yours, but I love it. What was your wacky question?
Okay, well, we have one of our markets that we manage is the biggest market in San Diego County. It's in Little Italy, the neighborhood of Little Italy, and it's 6 blocks long, and there's 200 plus vendors there. And there was a customer that asked where the central register was, like the checkout for the market. Where's the checkout stand? And I just couldn't. I thought she was kidding, but she was not kidding, and I just couldn't comprehend. I mean, obviously shoppers sometimes have a different idea about what kind of market they're at, but it was 6 blocks. Like, how would we even manage that? I wanted to know how she thought we would manage that, and it was just, I had never heard that before. So I said,
That's funny.
You check out with each vendor, and we don't have grocery carts. And
do you know that Mark Bittman suggested that last year? He's a respected food writer, and he said, farmers markets would work better if they had a central register. It's like, I think you're missing it, Mark.
I would not want to be stuck in a line of 10,000 people waiting for checkout.
Yeah. That'd be a long line.
I'd have all my cookies eaten before I ever got up to the register.
Exactly.
I have nothing. I'm sorry. I don't need to pay you. Never mind. We're done.
Awesome. Charlotte, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy day to speak with us, and we're so excited to have you back at Intense Conference 2019.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. It's truly an honor. I love doing this.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye, guys.
Hope you've enjoyed listening to our conversation with Charlotte. If you'd like to hear more about what Charlotte does, check out her website, 3cowmarketing.com. That's the number 3cowmarketing.com. And follow her on Facebook and her Instagram at Charlotte Smith 3Cow. That's the number 3, Charlotte Smith 3Cow. She's up to all sorts of fun stuff there. She'll be joining us for our 3rd annual Intense Conference on February 24th through the 26th, 2019, right here in San Diego. And you can find more information about our conference at intenseconference.com. Please leave us a review on iTunes and tell us how you like today's episodes. Reviews help us know what we're doing right, know what we can adjust, and also helps other people find our podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss our next episode.
This podcast is produced by Intense Business, where passion meets profit. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Justine Marzoni-Mead. Original music by David Mead. Special thanks to our guest, Charlotte Smith and San Diego Markets.